Afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome to all our eminent speakers. This is the first event we are conducting on this platform, WFM Community. It's a virtual platform connecting architects, consultants, engineers, builders, developers, and all professionals in the building and construction industry. And it gives me a privilege to welcome all of you onto this platform and give a knowledgeable discussion on today's topic. Before we start, I am just going to give a brief to what is WFM Community, and I also will introduce all you speakers to our viewers. Let me start with a short presentation with all the speakers and the community also. So what is WFM Community? WFM Community is an initiative by WFM Media to develop world's first and largest virtual community for facade and fenestration professionals. It enables professional networking, connecting architects, builders, and consultants, and other members from the industry world over. It keeps you informed on the innovations, technologies, and new product launches in the industry. And our aim is to have a self-sustaining growing professional network. I think it is time to rethink your business strategy with the changing situations, and we believe that this becomes the largest platform in the world to connect brands with its influencers. So let me start with the presenters today. Deben Moza. He is from Nightfrank, India. He has over 24 years of work experience in architecture. Project manager. I hope you can all hear me, right?
Yeah, I think we just lost you for a few seconds, but now we can hear you.
So I will just start with the introduction once again. Mr. Deben Moza has over 24 years of work experience in architecture, construction, project management, and corporate relocations. He has led teams delivering projects totaling more than 30,000 square feet. And he has more wide international experience, having extensive experience with MNCs, international consultants, and in particular, he has built a huge reputation for commercial occupation studies, strategies, together with hands-on project management from inception to the go live, that is to the completion stage. The second speaker for today is Ashish K. Jain, partner. He is the Aeon Integrated Building Design Consultants partner, and he leads a sustainability and green building business. He has over 18 years of experience in the field of green building, sustainability, BIM, interior design, architecture projects, and different, he's worked in different countries, including India, USA, Europe, and the Middle East. He has presented several papers in various domestic and international forums, leading sustainability at premier institutes. He has been associated with many forums, including CIA and IGBC. As a sustainability professional, Ashish has been having a professional experience in the field of design strategies, microclimate enhancement, and working with various building types. He is an expert in advising architects, engineers, and professionals in the building industry for a sustainable development, energy conservation, and positive buildings. The third speaker today is Mr. Ranajoy Datta. He is the Director of Energy and Sustainability at View Inc., a leading manufacturer of dynamic glazing from North America. He collaborates with architects, engineers, sustainability consultants to incorporate dynamic glazing and create high-performance building at interaction of human wellness, smart connectivity, energy efficiency, and his degrees in architecture, planning, and building performance simulation. He holds a BR from Jadavpur University and Master of Science degree from Cornell and Arizona State University. The next speaker is Mr. Anup Devasya. He is the lead architect with PM Group. He is a senior manager, professional with proven experience in building teams, managing complex projects, delivering excellent results. His consulting portfolio spreading across 6 million square feet building area, including planning, mixed use, retail, healthcare, workspaces, institutional, educational, and transportation projects. Karl Wadia is the senior associate with architect Hafiz Contractor. Karl Wadia joined the firm in 1999 as an intern. Later on, after studying architecture in Academy of Architecture, Mumbai, he did his master's from Columbia University. Thereafter, he worked in a London-based firm, Horn Pedersen Fox, for 3 years. He came back to India and he is with the AHC, the Architects Office Contractor, for the past 15 years. He is responsible for designing many projects, including the largest 100% net zero building and the Griha 5 rated Manipal University, Jaipur campus, which happens to be the third largest net zero energy building in the world and the biggest in India. His next quest is to design a carbon neutral building with the IIM Calcutta's 135-acre campus. He has also designed so many buildings in India, part of the design team for Indian Institute of Petroleum Energy, for the National Rail Transport Institute, for the BITS campus is Pilani, Goa and Hyderabad, and many other projects. So today's moderator would be Mr. Rajat Agarwal. He is the director of Baruka Extrusions. Rajat Agarwal is the director of Baruka, which is a 100% subsidiary of YKK Japan. He holds a BSc degree from Bryant University, USA, with a double concentration on management and economics. Post his graduation, he moved to Boston and worked for 3 years with a startup consultancy. Then thereafter, in 2008, he moved back to India, working with Baruka. He also serves various facade committees like IFA, BIS Standard Work Group, CII, BNC Sector Committee, Building and Construction. He is also a very good squash player and he's based out of Mysore, India. So here I'm handing over the discussion to Mr. Rajat Agarwal. Mr. Rajat Agarwal, you can start.
Great. Thank you so much for introducing all the eminent speakers for today and for introducing me. Once more, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's session. I don't have a particular format, but I just have a few open-ended discussion points that I would throw out, and we can take it as it goes. As you all know, the topic that we are trying to discuss today is, what is the impact the pandemic has had on on various communities, including the architectural community. How does it influence design? And what is it that we as an industry, we as specialists in each of our fields, can learn from this and can do going forward. So let me begin with my first sort of Q&A, which is with the rapid spread of COVID-19. We all assume that the designs going forward is not going to be the same as before. And this holds true for large spaces like airports, hospitals, hotels, gyms, and so on. So maybe for the first question, if I could, have comments from Mr. Deben on what he thinks will be, some of the changes in designs going forward for large public spaces.
Thanks, Rajat, and good afternoon, everyone. I think what COVID-19 has done is created a flurry in design and construction industry. And now the conversation has shifted the focus more on, online experiences, deeper integration of technology, and definitely health and well-being. So, what COVID has done has acted as a catalyst in, accelerating the pace of the change with technology, which was already there, but we were moving at a relatively slow pace. But suddenly, this has triggered, a chain reaction. And what we've seen in last 8 months is an experiment, which is a global experiment which has worked very well. Nobody could believe that, for 8 months plus, people can, operate from their respective homes. And it has actually worked with courtesy technology. So there would be changes in design and how we use the spaces. The definition of work itself is changing. It can be office design, or it can be airports, it can be hotels. How we used to operate pre-pandemic and how we operate now would actually change. And most of the changes are behavioral changes and followed by the design changes. But yes, what we've learned due to this experience is how we have to be very careful with the sanitization protocols and cleanliness and everything. So, and I think it's too early to predict what exactly is the final change. We're going through this process, and every day we're learning how things are, shaping up in terms of design and construction. So what this pandemic has done is that we already knew that, the closed areas or enclosed areas are not the better areas. So we, going forward, we'll see more focus on wellness, health, which now definition of health has changed. It's not only a physical part, it's actually physical, mental, and social well-being is what's called as. So architects and designers, developers, builders, everybody would focus more on health and well-being in their design. So that's my take on it.
Great. And that leads me into my second question, which is what are some of the fresh ideas pertaining to the design of facades and fenestration that we could look at going forward? What are some of the trends? And if I could request Mr. Karl to answer this question.
Thanks, Rajat, and thanks, Deben, for a good introduction. I think I just want to add a little bit to what Deben was saying a minute ago. A different dynamic to it, and that is what COVID has also demonstrated is the divide between people. The divide has, if anything, it has further expanded. So there is this whole part of the world which can function out of their homes and laptops with the help of technology. So that's a very small fraction of the rest of the industry that has to do actual work. I'm not saying for a minute that we don't do actual work. I myself have been at home from the last 6 months working from home. But the rest of the industry or the rest of the whole city and the whole country that is involved in manufacturing, supply chains, infrastructure development, and all of that. So one thing has become abundantly clear that as architects, we are so blessed that we can work from home. That that is one thing that I want to say. And the other thing is that sometimes when you work in a bubble, you don't really connect with what are the real problems in design. So I think given what they've been said, and something that I've personally been talking about since quite a while, is that we need to bring the biophilia back into design. We need to connect users of buildings, much more with nature and with open space, bring some of the fundamentals that we seem to have conveniently lost over the last 20 years, like cross ventilation, access to natural light, phasing buildings, converting the user experience from extreme heat or cold to semi-shaded to shaded spaces and all of that. We need to bring some of those fundamentals back into design. And I hope that this COVID period has really brought that into the limelight. So in a roundabout way, Rajat, answering your question, I think facades are going to be less about elevation, look and feel, and more about functionality and how they perform. So, going forward, I think in the next 5 years, successful architecture is going to be measured by how well buildings perform rather than how good buildings look. That's my point of view. And at least we as a firm have woken up to it very, very quickly, and we are changing the way we think.
Great. That's great to know. And thank you so much for that, Carl. And both from the first two responses, we have heard how important occupant wellness is, and social well-being, and how factors like cross ventilation influences occupant wellness. And this brings me to my third question, which is, are there certain specifics that can be done, for example, the audience that is hearing us today or will hear us later, as a takeaway, or for young students of architecture? Are there certain specifics that they can look at or they should look at while designing facades for the residential? Let's talk about the residential segment, as most people can immediately relate to it. And I would like to pose this question to Mr. Ronojoy.
Yeah, sure, Rajat. I think there are definitely different ways to look at it. I particularly agree with your last point. I think there has to be an emphasis on technology in general. I think starting from the early design stages in terms of harnessing like different tools, right? Simulation tools, understanding building performance. I completely agree with Carl on that. It has to be performance based, not just a one-time certification, right? You get a LEED Platinum and that's it. But I think that going back to the architecture curriculum, I feel like, I graduated some time back, right? So I'm not exactly sure of how things have changed, but it's important to train the next generation architects to understand what are the different technologies, what are some of the newer ideas, because if anything, it's still a safe environment to take risks, right? When you're a student, right? Sometimes you come out, you have a lot of practical constraints, or you get discouraged from trying to do that. So I think that definitely there has to be more emphasis on training the next generation of architects to study new technologies on facade design. In my opinion, I think, again, working for a facade company, a company that manufactures what is smart glazing, I definitely feel that the future of architecture, I mean, we've heard climate responsive design for a long time, and it's there for a reason. But surprisingly, the facade has rarely been responsive, right? If you think about it, it's typically a kind of static element, right? Most of the time, building materials don't really respond in the true sense. So I would say that that is one area that things are changing, and they will be forced to change. The building skin has to be more responsive. If anything, that is the first interface with the outside, right? So if everything around a building is dynamic, why is a facade supposed to be static? How is that going to address that, right? So I mean, I think that's kind of my opinion, and we can get into more details. I'll want to hear the other speakers too, but yeah, that's my take.
Sure. So I think one of the important takeaways not mentioned earlier is this entire concept of technology, and not only technology in design, but also technology in facade material, right? And I, representing aluminum extrusion facility, company, sometimes I find it limiting that, what more can I do? How can I bring in better alloys or, better ventilation into my products? And, maybe we could also hear from Mr. Anup on what are his takes, especially on facade material. I mean, what are the limitations today of facade material out there? What are some of the maybe new kinds, or what is some of the technology that you would like to see in facade material?
Yeah, thanks, Rajat. Adding to what Carl was saying, so he was talking about biophilia, and also touching upon the wellness, occupant wellness, which we were talking about. See, basically an average person spends about 80 to 90% of the time within a building, be it an office, home, or shopping areas. So that clearly indicates, the importance of facade. And then now we are not at all talking about facade just as a sheet of glass or a cladding, or, just as a external show. So we are talking about pure functional facades. So I think it has to be something which indicates, it has to be something which gives more wellness to the occupants, and then it should really become a skin of the building, and it should not become like a container. And basically the elements, that is the light, air, water, and noise. So that's the thing which we have to control. And then how pure the air we are breathing, and while the occupant is protected from the rain splashing on the facade, is also able to sense and feel the element of water. That are the things which architects has to ideate and then get into a design mode. Now, talking about the different type of material which we were expecting to be in the facade industry. So I think one of the main thing is fire safe materials, and which will have a lot of durability, and which will have less maintenance, and then ease of installation, and it should have a self-cleaning kind of properties. And also I think glass is going to stay on for a long time, because glass has been made it into different kind of designs, and then different kinds of type of projects which we've done. So glass is definitely going to stay there. And then in addition to that, I think there is a lot of vernacular materials which will come into place with a good blend of modern elements to it, and be it clay or be it terracotta. And I think HPL also is something which can come into the facade industry. And of course, I mean, there are importance of cost-effective materials which can come into the facade industry as well, because the more we talk about materials, immediately the first question comes from the client side is, how costly it is going to be. So I think there is a good area which can be developed further in terms of the facade materials.
Great, thank you so much for that. And the topic on facade materials, there are a lot of interesting ideas out there and what is required from the industry. But being from this industry, from the manufacturer side, we often feel left out that the needs and the wants of the end user are not really coming down to the level of the glass manufacturer or aluminum manufacturer. And as such, various associations play a very important role. For example, we do have various associations within the glass community, within the UPVC community, within the aluminum community. And recently in India, there are associations like Façade and Fenestration Association, but these are not yet very active. And this brings us to the role of government, to the role of specifications. What are the specifications that we can influence as a community, which looks after, of course, very important factors like fire safety, but also going forward, more on the occupant wellness. So this brings me to sort of my next question, which I would like to direct to Mr. Ashish on, what are some of the specifications in fenestration material, which can influence wellness, and do you have any thoughts on what the industry can do about it?
Sure, thanks, Rajat. I think the way we have been dealing with facades so far has been, I would say, traditionally we were not even thinking about the energy efficiency as such, but I think from last 1.5 decades, we have been focusing on the energy efficiency as one of the main areas. And now I think the industry has kind of matured enough to have such materials, such specifications to deal with it. Efficiency in terms of the performance, when we look at the building performance, the way we define performance is also changing now. It's not just the energy efficiency, the health and wellness which has come into the existence and the discussions that we are having. As far as the specifications are concerned, we have also experienced in the recent times that the way regulations can drive the industry, the way specifications being adopted by the projects can transform the manufacturing industry. We have seen that all as part of the energy efficiency and the sustainable developments, etc. Now, when we look at health and wellness as a specific measure, I think all in all we have to deal it in a more integrated manner, because we cannot say that my building is energy efficient but it's not comfortable to people, or maybe it's comfortable but it's not energy efficient. So there are 5 main things which I particularly see when we look at facades that we have to really deal with in a more holistic manner, starting from the the comfort, visual comfort of the people who are using it, their thermal comfort. Number 3 could be actually, which is the most crucial element for any owner, is the capital cost. For building operators is the operational cost, and the other one is acoustic. The moment we look at these 5 elements in a holistic manner, I think all our quest of whether it is the efficiency from energy standpoint or the wellness, we can look at it and cater to it. Now, when we say that what could be the government regulations do in this whole situation, with recent development and mandate of energy conservation building code, which has come into picture, I think the way specifications are laid down for the projects has also changed. The way we have started designing the facades is also changing. So no more discussions that whether do we look at the efficiency or not is all gone, because it's a mandate to you that you have to really design for. So regulations from that perspective really play a very important role. I would say that any regulation coming from the health and wellness perspective, I think COVID has really kicked off the whole process, but it may take some more time to get it into the regulatory format, because it's more of a voluntary as of now. But yes, things like when we talk of glazing, it is all the specifications which are important, whether it is the conductivity or the solar heat gain coefficient or the visible light transmittance or the reflections, everything. So those specifications will come, but so far we do have the specification as far as the the codes are concerned, and that is being dealt with accordingly.
So, Ronjoy, since you're based, in the US and working there now within the glazing industry, you must have, a lot of differences between, the best practices that are being currently adopted there, and, what are some of the challenges that India is facing today. And, if you were to design a roadmap, or if you were to suggest a roadmap to all the viewers today, what would be some of your key takeaways or suggestions to us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, just to clarify, you're asking within the context of the Indian market, right? What are the challenges? Right?
Yes, within the context of the Indian market, and how, I mean, for example, as YKK, our YKK AP US, the energy efficiency label, system, the energy efficiency rating system for doors and windows, is already out there from the past 20 years. But in India, we have not yet started, energy labeling for windows within the aluminum space. So, we have a long way to, go. So if you were to, suggest a roadmap, what would that look like?
Yeah, that's a good. It's, I think, fairly broad question. My perception is, obviously, having grown up in India, having studied here, and then working in it. I don't really work actively in the Indian market. Haven't in some time, but I know one thing is that there has to be a certain market demand for certain things to happen. Right? It cannot be a push from just the authorities, so to say. So I think that's a big difference in terms of the perception in the US market. The general awareness about green buildings, green design is much higher. I'm not talking about architects, I'm talking about general public, right? So what that means is these days people are willing to invest in air purifiers and water filters without asking questions, right? They already know that. In some cases, it's a necessity. They don't have a choice. But I think most people don't tend to relate health and wellness with buildings. It's fairly still a rare thing in India, right? It's a matter of, so that I think is one thing that has to be addressed through different, like this is one example. WFM Media is probably a good example of how you might be able to reach out to, a general broader audience. And I think that's important to ensure that, because I know that codes are there, right? ECBC is there, LEED, IGBs, all these are there. But when it comes to actually wanting to do that, the desire is not so much there. That's my perception. Again, I don't have as much experience as Carl does, but that's what I've heard in that. Why do people not want to? It's not like they don't have money. Developers have money. They're like, it doesn't matter. I can sell this. I can rent this building regardless. Why spend extra money? So that's one way of looking at it. So I think if a roadmap has to be developed, it needs to have some way to have a parallel way to, educate the market, so to say, right? About what are the benefits. Now that we know that there are direct connections with health and wellness and design, right? I mean, this is not a myth or anything like that. There are enough studies, there is enough evidence to do that. So I think that is one thing. The other, I would say that in general, there is a very, I don't want to put this, I mean, there is a very minute focus on cost, right? And rightfully so, but everything kind of is looked at the lens of value engineering, which unfortunately often is not the right way to go about it. And this going with the lowest cost bid approach is not always the right approach, I think. And unfortunately, that's just part of the way many things get done right here, especially government. So I think that is also a challenge. I mean, I understand why would somebody want to spend more money, right? Unless there is a really good reason. So my response to that, and this is what we're doing in the US, I'll keep it brief, because see, our product, this dynamic glazing that we manufacture, we don't sell it on energy. We can't sell it on energy. There is no ROI on energy. Okay, so the premium on this product is not about, it is an energy efficient product. It is about occupant comfort. But what we have actually latched onto is the health and wellness aspect of this product, of natural light and views. And we have actually done third-party studies where we have done cognitive tests, we have done productivity tests. So once you start connecting the return of a product, whatever that is, right, whatever feature, to something that is related to occupants, it's actually a better sell in my mind. It's a harder one, but that is in my mind the right way to go. Unfortunately, energy alone is, then you will really have to, it's going to be a problem. I don't think that with energy getting cheaper, I don't see that energy efficiency is going to necessarily be the only way to sell products. That's my take, I think, is to figure out what metrics are relevant for what person. Like a hospital will want to know about recovery rates, about nurse satisfaction. A developer wants to have a higher rent, right? An owner wants to have higher productivity. So that's, I think, the way to tackle if you want to go and design something with newer technologies. Yeah.
And that's a very interesting point, that we really need to figure out what are the driver metrics for each of the sectors, for example.
Good point.
Yeah, please Carl, go ahead.
No, I think Ranjoy makes a good point on that. We've recently entered a couple of competitions and for Indian institutes, and fortunately, we've noticed in the last 3-4 years that they've made every Government of India project, at least the ones that we are doing, they've made it mandatory that the buildings or the output has to be Griha 4-star rated. So I think, like we have the environmental assessment for large projects in real estate, I think, putting up metrics like Griha for real estate projects should be pretty much made mandatory. To a certain extent in India, it's pretty easy to get a LEED certification, especially if it's a gold. Maybe platinum is a little harder, but I think Griha is a standard which is much more applicable to India, and I think I can't see the reason why somebody who's in the right position should not make like a Griha 4-star, or 5-star is a little difficult to get and expensive, but Griha 4-star almost mandatory for any and every project, because it's quite straightforward. It's not that difficult. And in India, somehow we've noticed that it's only when RERA came that real estate developers started cleaning up their act. So it's the same thing with sustainability, that you'll almost have to enforce it at a government level for it to start happening. And then we're very good at following in this country, so we'll immediately start following that guideline. Right now, you do a Griha 5-star project, or you do a net zero project, it's a big thing and you can talk about it. But I'm sure in the US and in other more matured countries, it's pretty straightforward and run of the mill.
Right. Mr. Devin, I also wanted your opinion on this, because you have a wide experience in dealing with residential segment, the industrial segment, the hospitality segment, various segments out there. So do you often come across in your discussions or engagements, a very distinctive thinking of, driver metrics of what defines success, what defines, how does each one of them define wellness or, well-being or profitability?
See, wellness is a very new concept in India. If I say concept, is like we used to practice wellness centuries ago, and then it went to US and it has come back and repackaged, and now we're talking about wellness. We always had, if you look at our, vernacular Indian architecture, wellness was, the key for any design. We had specific directions for specific things, and there was a science behind it. So, we just, I think, got carried away by the Western design, and we just started replicating those and creating those glass boxes and, energy guzzlers, if I may call that. Because you put a glass box, a glass building, you put, thousands and thousands of tons of air conditioning to cool it. You create a problem and then you address the problem. That's what is happening. So, what has happened in the last couple of years is there was sustainability, which became, a CSR or a corporate initiative for most of the multinationals, and then slowly it sort of, the developers started picking it up, because a corporate won't, lease out a building if it's not a sustainable building. That became, a check or a tick point for them to, lease out any building. And month and a half back, I was on a panel for creating, green certification for industrial projects. Again, the way logistics and warehousing is expanding in India, we definitely need to look at, because they again consume a lot of energy. So it is, it's work in progress. I don't see that everybody understands what sustainability is or wellness is. So it's still work in progress and limited to 7 or 8 metros in India. We still have to address it in tier 2, tier 3 cities. I think till the time it doesn't become, as Carl was mentioning, or Ashish and Anup also mentioned, it becomes sort of a core of a design in terms of, you start it, make it as part of curriculum. When you're teaching architecture, it should become part of the curriculum, that this is how you need to design. And also then government has to enforce the policies that, for any building approvals, you need to have at least, if I talk about LEED, you need to at least have a silver rating, or if you talk about Griha, so, there's star points. So till the time it doesn't become mandatory, and as Carl was mentioning, RERA certainly shook the developer community, and they realized how important it is to, commit whatever timelines they were committing to the end users. Now they're forced to deliver those, otherwise there are severe penalties on it. So I think government should act on it and make it mandatory for each and every building we're constructing. And as a designer community, or as real estate consultants, it is also our responsibility to promote it.
Great, great. Anup, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, I totally agree with Deben and Carl. Unless there is a regulations in place, it will be very difficult in the design table, because there is going to be still design negotiations. So if there is a regulation in place, then it will be easy for architects, I believe. It will be easy for us to put forth our point in front of the client.
Great, great. So, I think for me, the important takeaway from this is that, COVID, for example, did create an awareness, a mass awareness that well-being is very, very important, that sustainable design is very, very important. And, it often takes a lot of private and public and educational institution, government effort to create awareness on a large scale. And now that the awareness is out there, I think it's up to us to capitalize on this awareness and make sure that the ball keeps rolling, and we get where we were anyway supposed to get much sooner than later. So with this, please Carl.
Well, one point I think which I just remembered what Ranjoy said, which is quite valid, that with the cost of energy coming down, we're going to have to spin a new story on sustainability, because and Ranjoy, I'm glad you brought that up, because how do we develop a metrics that actually measures wellness? And I mean, our kids today in school are already beginning to segregate trash and learn good habits right from childhood, so they are already ahead of the curve. And it's sort of, the pressure is on us to start creating infrastructure and architecture and buildings that 2 generations after us are going to appreciate. Otherwise, they're going to look at it and say, what crap these people made. And there's going to have to be a completely new way of thinking. So that's a good point, and I'm sort of wondering how to, what is the new metrics? What is the new story to spin? I just wanted to get that out.
Yeah.
Great. Interesting.
I think I would like to add here, fortunately or unfortunately, but energy efficiency and the wellness or the comfort concepts which have started coming in, though it has started coming in before COVID, but COVID has triggered this thought in everyone's mind, where even the ongoing project owners who were not really concerned on these issues, they have suddenly started talking about how are we going to deal with post-COVID situation in our building. So let's talk about the design elements which can actually help us mitigate those issues. So I think these kind of things which are going somehow in a positive direction. And on the green ratings also, what we have seen over time, that market or the whole market needs something new to talk about, something new to do. While the green building movement which had started, it was a new dialogue which started and kept going. And now I think wellness as a concept and wellness as a measure has taken a parallel seat in the whole story of building design. So I think it's getting there. And my personal opinion is that the amount of time this topic is going to take to get matured enough in the industry is going to be really very short compared to the amount of time we have taken to understand, the green buildings or the energy efficiency as a concept. So I think this is going to be a definitely better area now on.
Yeah. No, I was just going to add one point, Rajat. I think,
Yes.
and I think this goes back to how Devan started his point that, in India, we've had sustainability and wellness concepts, right, for a long time. It's not like we need to learn it from, some other, of course, there are, pros and cons of everything. But like I said, I think a lot of that probably had to do with more on a personal level, which is a great thing. If Indians are at a personal level more sustainable, right, in terms of consumption, in terms of waste management, that's a huge achievement. But like I said, I think the connection with buildings is what was not always clear, especially at a larger scale. Maybe at a home scale, it's better. So I think one caution I would give for I think young designers, architects is definitely try to understand the context that you're designing for, right? I mean, just because it's been done in the US or the Europe or whatever, I think it's common sense, but often people don't think about it. And I think a classic example is going to be the over reliance or air conditioning, right? Which has just become a bane of like everything, right? You just we tend to forget that, in a tropical climate like India, where we all grew up, we have a much wider tolerance for different conditions, right? Especially in the US, one of the biggest problems has been the over reliance on like building tight skin facades, and they're only getting tighter because of code. And then the problem is that people are so used to such a narrow comfort standard, like the ASHRAE standard 55. They have such a narrow comfort region that, frankly, engineers it's a vicious cycle, right? They're trying to design for such a narrow comfort range that you need excessive air conditioning, and you're simply not, which then drives people to get used to a certain standard, which they then expect everywhere, right? They'll come home and they'll install an air conditioning there, then they will install it in the school. So it just triggers the whole thing, right? So I think that it's time to be very careful about what is the requirement for, the climate here, what are people adapted to. And I'm not suggesting that, you will sweat while working. Maybe we did it as kids in school. Maybe that's not acceptable to the new generation. But it also doesn't mean that we have to, completely keep everybody 100% comfortable all the time, right? There has to be some balance here. And that notion of comfort needs to adapt, is what I'm saying. It's global warming. We have to accept that. There's pollution. So I know it's not easy as saying open the windows, right? There are issues there. But these are challenges we need to address rather than just relying on mechanical cooling or solutions like that. I think that India has been always good in terms of that design strategy. That has to be merged with technology. Yeah.
So, Ranjoy, what we did in Manipal, which is the net zero building that Renu introduced, we introduced a series of corridors so that it's in Jaipur, so that when you come from that 40-degree temperature, you come into a space which is around 33 to 34 degrees. So it's a straight 7-degree drop. And then when you enter the classrooms, we actually did our own comfort metrics where the air conditioning is running at 26.5 degrees with the support of fans.
Mm-hmm.
And this phenomenally reduced the amount of air conditioning we were using, not only because we were shading the windows by having corridors and all, we were doing highly reflective tiles and solar panels on the terrace, so not to heat up the building. We had double walls, and then we were cooling only down to 26.5 degrees with fans. So we sort of created an artificial comfort with reference to the temperature outside, which was 40.
Yeah.
And then we did a reverse engineering for the winter seasons. And that's why we were able to achieve 650 square feet per ton of air conditioning.
Yeah, makes sense.
The irony is we're moving towards biophilic design and getting indoors, outdoors, indoors. But again, keeping that in a glass box. So, you're just creating an artificial environment inside. So it's what Ranjoy said or what Carl said, it's intelligent designing, how you can achieve a comfort temperature for any human being, and it has to be a climate specific or a region specific, because you can't have one template of design for everything. We have to have a different designs for places like Jaipur or Delhi, which are very hot, and then for Bangalore or Pune, where the climate is very I can say human friendly, you can have a different kind of a design. So that's something which has to change, because what is being done is we're just replicating design. So you can't make out, if you just show a picture and you ask anyone that tell me which place this building belongs to, you can't tell it. It can be in New York, it can be in Bangalore, it can be in Delhi. So a building has to have a local flavor, a local architecture to it, and so does the facade. The facade should tell us which place the building should be in.
Maybe you can tell from the workmanship if it's in Delhi.
That just reminded me, I think 2-3 weeks or last month, I was watching a show on Netflix which has to do with homes around the world, and there was a very interesting firm, I can't recollect the name. This is in Indonesia, and the architect is designing homes made out of bamboos, and everything is made out of bamboo, and the point is that
we've been doing it for centuries in India. So bamboo construction is very old in India.
So it's very interesting that how do you use local material which automatically makes it environmentally sustainable? How do you blend your whether it's office or a home with nature? So again, you use less energy, and you design around the space that you're living in using locally available materials. So it was a very interesting episode that I watched. Great. Again, I would like to thank all of you for taking time out and attending this event today. I would like to hand back the session to Ms. Renu.
Thank you so much, Rajat. That was a fantastic, wonderful, informative session we had. Thank you, every speaker, for the wonderful contribution. I have just put the points together, whatever been discussed. I'll just share it with the audience who are going to view this discussion. Okay, these are the points which were discussed today. Yeah. So in this discussion, subject matter specialist discuss the following points, that is the impact of pandemic COVID-19 on the practice of architecture, design for occupant wellness, the need for informed design and adaptability of design, biophilia, which is a very new concept for Indian architects. I think its application and benefits, which would definitely improve the situation post-COVID constructions. The true concepts of net zero energy and carbon neutral, and adapting it to the present situation for occupant comfort. Then the LEED and GRIHA certification for building, which is very important point, focusing on wellness. And I think since people are spending more than 90% of their time indoors, we have to focus more on the certification, focusing on the wellness and the occupant comfort. Then the other important points discussed were the cost of facade fenestration material versus visual appeal, and again on occupant comfort, like how do you use air conditioning and what is the need for fresh air to come in. Of course, the material cost and other things. The need for government regulations, which we need to make certain certifications mandatory, wellness as a concept and a necessity, and the introduction of 100% sustainability in building design, which is the key. These critical pieces of future facade designs will ensure that the building systems have adequate performance requirements in the post-COVID era, and definitely bring much more operative effectivity. So thank you so much for the speakers once again. I will request the audience to join WFM community, including the future debates and discussions, interviews, views from experts, and many other events which would come forward. We will keep you posted on all these events. Thank you so much, panelists. Thank you very much. I enjoyed the session and it was very interesting.
Thank you, Renu, for being a wonderful host, and Rajat as well.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Nice meeting you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks to the fellow participants.
Bye. Yeah, bye.